list on the Uganda Securities Exchange. And that was on the 18th of January in the year 2000, when the stock exchange had just begun about 3 years ago in 1997. And before the Uganda Clay's listing, we only had a bond that was listed and a couple of other corporate bonds from PTA that were actually listed on the Uganda Stock Exchange. So Uganda Clays brought in the light of a company that was owned by government getting to list on the exchange and becoming a public company. Uganda Clays Limited, as a Uganda Public Limited company, is a liability limited company that deals in the manufacture of clay products, especially those used for housing and construction industries. The company's main business is the production and sale of roofing tiles, walling, and other building materials and decorative clay products. And with a reputation of being producers of high quality clay products, and of course using a dedicated and labor force, Uganda Clays boasts for its better raw material base than many of its competitors, and consequently prices of its products are highly competitive. Now, as I mentioned, it was the earliest company to list back in the year 2000 on the 18th of January. The company trades under the ticker symbol UCL, and that is, of course, the symbol you will find on the listing there on the Uganda Clays counter. Currently, the company is the 15th most valuable company out of the 18 listed stocks, and it has a total capitalization, market capitalization. When we talk about market capitalization, we are talking about the total value of the shares that are floated on the Uganda Stock Exchange, and it currently holds about 13.5 billion shares that are listed on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Now, this represents about 0.063% of the entire Uganda Stock Exchange. The company has been performing very well in terms of year-to-date performance. And when we look at their pricing yesterday, there was a slight decline, actually significant decline in the pricing of their stock after the company lost about 11.7% in a single day of trading, from 17 Ugandan shillings per share to 15 Ugandan shillings per share yesterday after closing the markets. And this drop was quite significant. However, the company began the year with a price of 13.0 Ugandan shillings. And comparing that to the 15 Ugandan shillings, the company has since then gained about 15.5% of their price valuation here on the stock market. And this is the best performance for all the listed companies in terms of year to date. And you have to take note of this. This is year to date, comparing the price at the beginning of the year on the 1st of January to the price at the moment. And we are saying from that time, the company has accrued about 15% on its price valuation. However, now this is where you need to take caution. Within the last 4 weeks, the company has registered poor performance after losing about 21% on average within the last 4 weeks. And this is exactly what is worrying many investors. Yesterday, there were a total of over 1.46 million shares that were sold out, leading to this loss in value. And therefore, we are seeing that the company has, of course, definitely got something to actually reckon. And therefore, you must be careful on that note when investing in Uganda Clays. In terms of trading or traded volumes, which is another performance indicator we definitely look at here, the company is the 5th most traded on stock, and that is on the Uganda Securities Exchange over the past 3 months, from the 21st of June to the 19th of September 2022. and this is based on data from the Uganda Securities Exchange. Within this period, they have traded over 4.3 million shares on the stock market, and these shares are valued at 72.6 million Ugandan shillings. This is just within the last 3 months. Their average per trading session within this period has been 68,239 shares per trading session on average, and currently they have the highest volume of about 1.46 million, which was traded yesterday, and that was on the 19th of September within this period that we are talking about. That, generally speaking, that is Uganda Clays for you. A little bit promising, but a little bit disappointing as well. On their year to date, we are seeing a very good figure coming on top of all the other companies, but then recent performance depicts a very significant decline, which you must take note of when you are investing. But regardless, if you are a long-term investor, go ahead and buy yourself some stock at Uganda Clays. We never know where the stock could go. Of course, demand for these products is high, especially with the construction and the building industry, where we are seeing new houses and new hospitals being built all over. And of course, the company is also trying to rejuvenate itself, and definitely the industry it's working in is one that cannot die, we know, in the mere thin air. So definitely, so you can still trust that the company will probably do better in the longer term. That is Uganda Clays Limited for you. The other company that lost yesterday was MTN, which I would just like to peep into before we cross over to Nairobi. MTN Uganda yesterday lost about 5 shillings from 190 to 185, and that was a 2.63% daily decline. That was after trading about 44,025 shares yesterday. The company is the second most valuable company on the stock exchange, with a total capitalization of about 4.14 trillion Ugandan shillings. And at the moment, they are registering a 4-week loss of 0.01% and a year-to-date loss of 5.12%, because they began the year with 194.99 Ugandan shillings, and they are ranked 6th in terms of year-to-date performance, which is not bad. 6th out of the 18 listed companies in terms of year-to-date, not so bad. Definitely something not to worry much about. What stands out also for MTN, it is still the 3rd most traded stock, much as it's the youngest company on the stock exchange, but still the 3rd most traded on within the last 3 months, from the 21st of June to the 19th of September 2022. And MTN has traded within this period about 15.6 million shares that are valued at 2.96 billion Ugandan shillings. That is within the last 3 months. And their volume high was a 2.28 million shares that was achieved on the 22nd of August 2022. Now, when you look at that graph there, we're seeing the performance of MTN stock there for the last couple of months since January 2022. We see that there are slight fluctuations here and there, meaning opportunities are provided for buying and selling, and also the stock has a very good activity on the market, at least for the moment. So this loss should not deter you from actually investing in MTN. Please go ahead and get yourself some stock at MTN, and we'll definitely see where this goes in the future. That is it from the Uganda Stock Exchange. The Uganda Stock Exchange here, we're seeing that in summary yesterday, we had about 1,649,831 shares that were traded. And these shares were corresponding to a total value of 55,852,677 Ugandan shillings. 55 million were transacted yesterday on the stock market. Now, compared with the previous day, that was Friday, the 16th of September, the data shows about 15% improvement in the volume and 80% decline in the turnover. So the volumes were a little bit bigger because of Uganda Clays, definitely, after the 1.46 million shares that were traded. And the turnover was a slightly smaller, and because of the lower price of the stocks at Uganda Clays. However, the market capitalization, the entire market capitalization for the Uganda Stock Exchange currently stands at 21.5 trillion Ugandan shillings at the moment. And of course, in aggregate, only 5 equities participated in the day's trades yesterday. Looking at some other companies that are listed, but of course we haven't mentioned because they didn't have any movement on the markets yesterday. We have British American Tobacco, that is at 15,000, and hasn't traded a very good volume recently and hasn't been that active on the stock market, but it trades at 15,000 Ugandan shillings if you're interested. Bank of Baroda, Uganda, is currently at 85 shillings. That's the trading price. Those prices are down there on the squeeze bag, but sometimes I just want to shed a little more light so people can understand actually that we have more than some of the companies that we just talk about here every now and then. Bank of Baroda notably is the most traded on stock within the last 3 months. It's still holding the #1 position in terms of traded volumes within the last 3 months. Centum Investment Company is currently trading at 302.42 Ugandan shillings. And then Cipla Quality Chemical Industries is at 70 shillings. And that is the 1,600 shares that were traded yesterday. And Cipla is the only pharmaceutical company that is listed so far on the Uganda Stock Exchange here. Whereas DFCU Bank is currently at 547 Ugandan shillings on the stock exchange. Of course, that has been the price for quite some time now. East African Breweries Limited currently stands at 4,501 shillings. And then you have Equity Bank Limited at 1,496.24 Ugandan shillings trading on the stock market today. Jubilee Holdings is currently at 7,774. Kenya Airways is at 121 shillings. And KCB Group is at 1,237.89 Ugandan shillings, whereas MTN is at 185. And then in National Insurance Corporation stands at 5.8 shillings, whereas Nation Media Group currently stands at 570.60, and New Vision Printing and Publishing Company stands at 155 shillings, whereas Stanbic Bank Uganda is at 21 shillings, and Uganda Clays at 15, whereas Wumeme is currently at 200 Ugandan shillings. That is the current market pricing for all the listed companies on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Please consider getting yourself some stock, get your children some stock, and make sure you keep track of at least what's happening on the stock exchange so you can add value to your money. That is the whole point on the program. We want to add value to our residual income. You understand, and me, I understand too, that we are living in tough economic times, inflation, currency depreciation, and so many other problems we are facing. But there's nothing better than having money somewhere and making you money without you going to work a single day. And definitely that is what financial markets are all about. Now, let's cross over very quickly to Nairobi and have a look at the 65 listed companies in Nairobi as we wind up the business of the stock exchange here at Smart24 TV. Now, yesterday was a very good day at the Nairobi Stock Exchange. We had over 47 of the 65 companies participate in trading. That is almost 3/4 of the companies that are listed on the stock exchange there in Nairobi. And the day ended with awesomely 20 gainers and only 18 losers, meaning the gainers surpassed the losers. And this is quite a very exciting activity we are seeing here on the stock market. On the losing side, on the gaining side, the gainers were led by IGAD. IGAD led the gainers at a 7.17% price appreciation, followed by Wumeme. Wumeme followed at a 5.26% price appreciation, whereas we had Crown Paints Kenya, who led by 5.2% appreciation, and Sun Group at 4% on the gaining side. On the losing side, rather, we had Uchumi come out at the bottom of the losers there after losing about 8% on her price there on the Nairobi Stock Exchange, and ending with a 0.23 Kenyan shillings price per share there on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. She was followed downwards by Car and General, who lost 3.85% and recorded also a loss there on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. There's also Everready East Africa among the bottom losers, and Total Kenya. Now yesterday, but one, Total Kenya was among the gainers. We're talking about Friday, the last day of trading. Total Kenya was a top gainer, but you see today is coming out as a loser. And that is something I always want to warn you about. Just because I said a company is doing very well and the company has gained, and it doesn't mean that it's always going to be like that. So you must take caution, and you must, of course, be a long-term person. That is one thing I'll keep emphasizing. Invest for the long term. Please don't pull out of the market all of a sudden because things are turning out red. No, keep the stock. Make sure you keep the stock until you have to gain from your stock. It's pointless to invest to make a loss. You have to invest for a gain. And so invest for the long term. Now, because of this very good performance at the Nairobi Stock Exchange, the all-share index at the Nairobi Stock Exchange went up by about 0.7 points, and that was a 0.53% increase. This is a very significant increase here. Nairobi has had its fair share of problems, especially during their general election trauma. People were very worried and pulling out of the markets and trying to run to, for example, safer investments back in the United States, because of course they have very many foreign investors that are interested in the Nairobi Stock Exchange. But currently, recent activity has showed that actually investors are getting back on board, with even much more domestic investors getting on board well. And this is driving the growth we are seeing on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. Now, yesterday also we saw we are still on a one-week loss of about 6.07% and a year-to-date loss of about 20.08%. Meaning there's still more to do when it comes to rejuvenating the former glory of the Nairobi Stock Exchange. But at least it's something good that we can rejoice about right now. Now, when you look at the entire summary here for the Nairobi Stock Exchange trades, at the end of the first weekday of trading on the NSE, we had about 11,376,900 shares that were traded in about 1,141 deals, corresponding to a market value of 338 million Kenyan shillings yesterday. The market registered a 57% decline in the volume and a 59% decline in the turnover, and a 26% decline in the deals. However, the capitalization at the NSE currently stands at 2.07 trillion Kenyan shillings at the moment. Those are our friends there in Kenya, and of course sanity is returning to the markets, so you should be on the outlook for the Nairobi markets. And I warned you, and I actually told you here on the show, get yourself some stock. During that time of elections, all the stocks were down. Every single company lost some good amount of value, and now they're coming back quite strongly. And of course, given the fact that they have many enterprises that are young and startups and so many, so there's a lot of volatility that you can take advantage of. Now I'm talking about those people who are really experienced in the stock markets, and you want to take advantage of these short-term oscillations in the market. The Nairobi market is available and still providing many opportunities for you. You just have to contact your stockbroker. Some of them here in Uganda definitely can still cross over to Kenya and get you that stock that you need. And that's it, definitely from the stock market analysis. Now, we had an interview with Counsel Lewis and Mr. Victor, who is a legal scholar, on what amendments need to be made in order for us to improve our capital markets industry here in Uganda. And I want you to check out this conversation right after the break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.